The Bahamas records its 9th COVID-19 death. Hello, I'm Julian Reid, and we're with you live. Well, a 50-year-old man is reportedly the latest victim of the coronavirus. Now, the Ministry of Health is expected to have a press conference at 5 p.m. to update us on all COVID-19 matters. So we expect to hear more details about this death. And it will be here live on the ZNS network, so we hope that you will stay tuned in. Well, the stats now. Of course, you know now that we have 9 deaths from COVID-19 in the Bahamas, but we have 53 cases, as last reported, 6 people recovered, and 712 in quarantine. Around the region, the Dominican Republic has 3,755 cases. The numbers continue to climb there. 196 deaths, 215 people have recovered. Jamaica, 125 cases, 5 deaths, 21 recoveries. Trinidad and Tobago, 114 cases, 8 deaths, 20 people have recovered. Barbados, 75 cases, 5 deaths, 15 people have recovered. Haiti, 41 cases, 3 deaths, 0 recoveries. The global perspective, well over 2 million people now have been confirmed to have COVID-19. 2,119,700 at last count. There have been 141,971 deaths. 535,513 people have recovered. Now, the United States, which continues to lead in numbers of infected people, are actually reporting more than 1,300 deaths overnight. There are 653,751 cases, 33,434 deaths, and 1,315 people died overnight, as I was saying before. 33,903 people have recovered. Well, the USA has lost more than 20 million jobs since mid-March due to coronavirus, so the economic impact there exceptionally great too. Spain has 182,816 cases, 19,130 deaths, 74,797 people have recovered. Italy, 168,941 people with 22,170 deaths. There have been 40,164 people who have recovered. Well, the UK Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, has just announced that there will be a 3-week lockdown extension. So in other words, they will continue to be in lockdown for another 3 weeks as they try to fight the coronavirus. It comes as the UK recorded another 861 coronavirus deaths overnight, taking the total number of hospital deaths to 13,729. France, Germany, and the UK all continue to report more cases of COVID-19 than China. Well, the world economy is already experiencing an economic downturn, which is expected to be worse than the Great Depression of the 1930s. But the Economist Intelligence Unit now says this could be followed by another possibly much worse downturn. World governments are giving trillions of dollars in stimulus packages to help prop up their economies, but the EIU warns that sovereign debts that they are racking up may push the global economy into a second recession. Well, the international impact, of course, is going to affect us here at home, and it already is. Cleo Murphy spoke with the Deputy Prime Minister on this.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honourable Peter Turnquest, agrees with an assessment by the International Monetary Fund that the global lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic will spark the worst recession since the Great Depression. He says the economic recession in 2008 does not even compare, as during that time there was still activity in some parts of the globe.
This one is affecting everybody and is devastating because it's not only shutting down international trade, but also domestic trade. And so there is really no relief for that internal pressure. And so we're seeing significant effects on business. We're seeing significant effects on individuals and families as we all watch the deteriorating balance sheets and the deteriorating resources, financial resources of individuals' families as they are laid off.
The IMF has predicted that global growth will fall to negative 3%, concluding that the novel coronavirus has led to a crisis like no other. Turnquest says the crisis is historic for the global community, and every country is trying to figure it out and provide for its citizens as best as they can. He says the most obvious sign of disruption has been to global travel.
It is also affecting trade, global trade, which is having knock-on effects in terms of interrupting the supply chains and processing plants throughout the world for goods and services and food that people need.
The IMF has determined that cumulative output lost during 2020 and 2021 as a result of the novel coronavirus could amount to as much as $9 trillion. The Deputy Prime Minister says the virus has disrupted all the gains the world has made when it comes to economic progress. For the Bahamas, the number one sector has taken a major hit.
The tourism has been completely shut down, robbing us of that revenue that we earn from that very important sector. And we also have this shutdown and curfew in the domestic economy that is further exacerbating the economic hardship on ordinary Bahamians as well as business owners.
He says the far-reaching effects of COVID-19 have put many in a position they never imagined they would be in. Here at home, he says government is trying to plan for the recovery in the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis, as they also try to provide for Bahamians who are now in need.
We're in discussions now with all of our stakeholders to see where they are, what the challenges may be for them as we look towards reopening the economy, what stimulus they may need in order to get them up and going as quickly as possible. We're looking at the kinds of projects that the government can initiate that will help to absorb some of the labor capacity that is out there.
The Minister of Finance says officials are also encouraging Bahamians to reimagine the economy and how they will operate in a new environment as remote work may become a part of the new normal. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.
Well, financial expert Gowan Bo agrees with what the Deputy Prime Minister has said, but in fact he says that we can expect a radically altered Bahamian economy that will seriously affect our quality of life. Here's what he had to say.
We are going to have to prepare ourselves for what I would say tightening our belts, not as a cliche, but understanding that ultimately some of the luxuries, some of the comforts that we had afforded ourselves because of the prosperity in the nation may have to be foregone. And it is only a temporary, if you will, give up of such luxuries, that ultimately if we stay focused on there always being a rainbow after a rainy day, there always being light at the end of the tunnel, there always being sunshine coming through those dark clouds, we have to remain positive, because in reality economic prosperity is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we believe it will be better and we act that it will be better, we have an opportunity to make it better. But certainly in the immediate future, we know that there is going to be a very, very sharp reduction in the quality of life that we as Bahamians know it today.
Well, around the world, a lot of big companies have actually shifted their priorities. For example, Tesla makes cars, but now they're putting a lot of their energy into actually making ventilators for people in need during COVID-19. Here at home, the John Watling's Distillery is doing something different than making just fine liqueurs. John Watling's Distillery actually joining more than 600 spirit manufacturers that are actually making hand sanitizers to combat the global pandemic. And as the only supreme spirit manufacturer in the Bahamas, Mr. Jose Portuondo, who is a co-founder of the John Watling's Distillery, said, and I quote, "We see it as a war effort." He says, "We are lucky to have an inventory of ethyl alcohol to fight against this virus. For John Watling's Distillery, there is no question in doing our part. Like the rest of our industry, we shifted our business to meet the needs of our community and those on the front line." Now, of course, if you are looking to get some of the John Watling's hand sanitizer, it will be distributed to grocery stores, pharmacies, clinics, and hospitals will also be coordinated through the Bahamas Medical and Surgical Supplies Limited at 159 Shirley Street. And we'll just take this opportunity to remind you that when you're going to wash, You should do it for at least a minimum of 20 seconds and do it frequently. Well, can you imagine going to Florida just for a couple of days but end up stuck there because of coronavirus? Well, there's a family out of Grand Bahama that did, and Shoshana Roll-Farquharson tells their story.
It's supposed to be a 3-day trip for the Bannister family of 5 has now turned into 3 weeks, with no return of coming home in sight. Ricardo Bannister says his family traveled aboard Valeria to collect his son, who went to the United States for a short stint after receiving structural damage post-Hurricane Dorian. But when it was time to come home, he was informed by the ship that they could no longer accept passengers due to the closing of the country's borders.
Gave me the assurity that they would be coming back, but so I had to take the chance, I guess, to do so. But I guess the chance was too slim.
Weeks later, he says his family is in a very scary situation. While they have received some assistance from the Bahamas Consulate Office, his fear is that they will soon become financially strapped in a foreign country.
I would more likely say that we will be running out of money shortly. Let's put it like that. Because you still got to be able to eat and have a vehicle to get around. I would say the only benefit we have right now is because we're in an apartment where my daughter stays, because we got an apartment for her to do her college, and right now we're in the apartment now. Yeah, she have other roommates.
And with 3 kids back home in Grand Bahama, he says they tried every option to return, including organizing a charter flight. However, they are still not allowed to come back into the country. At this point, he's making an appeal to the government for his family and all others who are stuck abroad.
In the U.S. at this time, they are taking back they're taking back their people in. Let's put it like that. Their citizens from different countries to get them safe in their country. So I feel that, since there's so many people over there, it would be possible to make that choice. And if they have to put us in a big room, then have us all, and have us sitting there until they feel that it's safe for us to get out, then.
We'll have more for you after this. Well, it's just been over a month since the first case of COVID-19 in the Bahamas, and the government was forced to take stricter measures that are now impacting us all in some ways which we didn't really hope to be impacted. But the fact is that Bahamians are feeling the pinch already. And our Cleopatra Murphy went to the National Insurance Board to get some of their stories, and truly it's touching.
They may not be afflicted with COVID-19, but for many Bahamians, the virus is taking its toll as bills mount and children go hungry. This was the cry of a father of 2 who did not want to appear on camera, but the man, like hundreds of Bahamians, lined up outside the National Insurance Board, hoping to access unemployment benefits to feed his family. Left unemployed due to the novel coronavirus outbreak, he says the situation has grown desperate and the wait to receive funds is too lengthy.
I applied in March the 3rd, and people told me I have to wait 6 to 8 weeks just for an unemployment check. I don't even have food to make up a tea, not even a drink of water.
As thousands of Bahamians flock to grocery stores to purchase food and supplies to sustain them through government-mandated lockdowns, the father says his family has gone days without a meal. Compounded with the fear of contracting COVID-19, there is another concern.
I to the point that my landlord ready to kick me out to this point right now. Going to social service and all, ask for rental assistance. That taking 6 to 8 weeks also.
The desperation was echoed by a number of residents also seeking some aid during a time that has become an economic nightmare for the Bahamas and other countries. Straw vendor Valerine Johnson was among them.
I'm presently home. My cash is low, my food is low, and I'm trying to get something, and it don't seem like I'm getting any good results. And I'm not computer literate, and they told me do online. I got somebody do it online, and they telling me go this way and go that way. I'm exhausted.
The 59-year-old was seeking unemployment and sick benefits. She says if she could get just one, that would help. But after going to the main office, she says NIB officials told her to go to another location.
I was on one line. They go to paper for that line and say, all the self-employment people must go to Sun somewhere. But I don't have any chance, but I'll have to walk that. If I have to walk that, I have to walk that.
Another straw vendor, also falling on hard times during the pandemic, says she was given the same message. While she lives with family, she says times are tough and they need help.
It's so bad because, everybody have to pay their bills and also supply their needs, you know what I mean? And right now it ain't easy. So I don't know.
As someone used to providing for herself, the resident says the current situation is difficult.
It's my end right now. It's very bad, and you know what I mean? So I don't know what the outcome's going to be. All you have to do is just pray, that's all you could say.
While residents in dire need say relief is not coming fast enough, Minister with responsibility for the National Insurance Board, the Honorable Brenzel Roll, says he understands, but due to the circumstances, he is satisfied with the pace NIB is operating.
This process was just announced to us less than 2 weeks, and we have made those payments to individuals in the major hotel companies. I know we're having some slight issues with persons in smaller companies because their process is a little bit slower because some of them are not up to date totally.
In some acknowledgement that residents may be falling through the cracks during the COVID-19 pandemic, Prime Minister the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis announced on Monday the pending formation of a food security task force to facilitate access to food for those at risk for food insecurity. The effort that involves hotel properties and NGOs would supplement assistance from NIB and the Ministry of Social Services and has already begun, with plans to make it more targeted.
Through their combined efforts, fresh produce, cooked meals, grocery packets, and other food supplies have been delivered directly to those in need in Abaco, Grand Bahama, Eleuthera, and New Providence.
The Prime Minister also announced plans for a soon-to-be-unveiled rental assistance program, but until the help manifests, residents reeling from the economic downside of the novel coronavirus wait. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.
Well, for years, if you travel down Wolf Road and past Great Commission Ministries, you'd see a lot of people lined up looking for foodstuff and also for clothing. How is their role now being challenged in COVID-19? Well, joining us live via Zoom is Bishop Walter Hanschel of Great Commission Ministries. Good afternoon, Bishop Hanschel.
Hi, good afternoon, Julian. Blessings.
Yes, to you too, sir. But how are the people, the many people that you bless every day? What's it like since COVID-19?
Well, we are going through something that we've never experienced before, Julian. And not just Great Commission, but this country, our beautiful Bahamas. We are in a national crisis like nothing we've experienced before. I take my hat off to the Prime Minister and the government for doing what they're doing and trying to resolve this major issue that we are facing. We've never seen so many persons hurting as what we are experiencing right now. And I'm speaking about not just the poor persons, I'm speaking also about the middle class. And we've never seen it like this. I don't know how we're going to resolve it, but we need some divine intervention. We need some solutions. Most of the countries around the world don't have a clue how to fix this problem. And I know that if we pray, if the Prime Minister requested prayers, we need just a time now for the country to unite, pray for solutions, pray for the leaders. And this is the time for all of the pastors, everybody to rise up and go on the front line and do what all we could to help.
Tell me though, Bishop, Tell me, Bishop, the people that you serve every day, are they coming even more so now for prayer? I want you to tell us also, though, how it's changed every day. I believe you're getting bigger numbers than you were before.
Yes, our clientele has grown tremendously. We've seen about 300 new persons that came to us in the last week that we never saw before, and mainly those are persons who've lost their jobs and they have no food in their homes, and they're waiting for assistance from social services and also from the National Insurance Board. And I know that they're doing their best, because I know they're overwhelmed just like us. And but we have to find a way to get food and financial aid to our people. We must find a way to reduce or even eliminate the red tape and find a way to get food into their hands. I thank God for the food task force that the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Health just got started. We support that completely. We've not, I know it's just in the planning stages right now, and so many NGOs are involved. We need that, but we need to find a way to get food to people before this lockdown. Last weekend, when we had that 5-day lockdown, Julian, we had families that were stuck in their homes and they ran out of food. They had no food in the homes, and a lot of these people had children in their homes, in their houses. Some families had as many as 7, 8 children, and they ran out of food. And they called us for help, for emergency help. We were able to get to most of those families and give them some either hot food or grocery bags that they could cook. But so many other families are going through the same experience. I know there were many that we couldn't get to and that didn't get to us. But we need to make sure that before the lockdown on tomorrow, that everybody has food in their homes. That's a must. Mm-hmm. And Great Commission, we're doing what we could. We've purchased food every day this week in the thousands, cases of foods, and we've been distributing to everybody. We've been getting some help from some of our financial donors, some of our churches, some of our pastors have reached out to us, some business persons, and we appreciate that so much. But we need more help. So if we could get more help, we could do more. We could reach more persons. I think I want to recommend 1 or 2 solutions that we could do as a country to help this burden, to help relieve the stress and the pain that so many people are going through. First of all, we need to deal with our food supply. We need to make sure that there's enough and sufficient food in the country. I heard the Prime Minister said that we don't have a problem with food, but I also heard in the U.S. in some pockets that they're saying they have some issues with food. And so we need to make sure that food supply, we have sufficient food supply here on this island and in all of our islands, because if we run out of food, we are in deep trouble. There's one thing we cannot live without is food and water. So it is our prayer that we would get sufficient food in this country, that the food would continue to come into the country, that nothing happens to stop that. Also, we are asking persons, with this prolonged shutdown and for the COVID-19, what is happening is that we have mass unemployment, we have business closures, we are seeing so much unrest now and uncertainty, and people are doing things that they would not normally do just to survive. So many people are in survival mode. We must understand that. So I'm asking everybody to be careful out there. People are going to find a way to steal, and crime might increase. But I want to thank God for the police, who's doing an excellent job keeping us safe. In particular, our new commissioner, Commissioner Paul Rose, is doing an excellent job with his officers, and I want to commend them for what they're doing. But I advise everybody to be careful as you move around. Be careful.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Bishop, I also want to ask, because we're coming up right now to another lockdown. Well, weekends from now on will be lockdown weekends, right? 9 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Mondays. We can expect it for a while unless things change. But we don't want you told us last week you heard of stories of people who ran out of food. How can we stop that from happening this weekend? I know donations are key to you. How can we get more donations to you? And also, what about volunteers? Do you need more volunteers? Are people less likely to volunteer now because of the fear of COVID-19?
Yeah, volunteer. We have some volunteers in place, but we realize that a lot of people will not come forward to volunteer at this time because of the COVID-19. But if anybody wants to volunteer, we welcome them. Really need if we can get persons to donate meat and food, grocery items to us. And if they can't do that, if they can bring us some money, some checks from businesses, from the community, from individuals, from our church leaders, we can get some help. We can play a big role in resolving the food problem, the hunger problem, because this is going to be here for a little while. Let's face it. This problem is not going away right now. From what I'm seeing, and there might be a global crash of the economy. I don't know what's happening, but as I look at CNN and other news media, we know that we have to be prepared for the worst, because things might not get better for right now. But I'm asking people to please don't panic, don't be afraid. Trust God day by day for your survival. God will take care of us. He always has. And this is the time now to just try to grow with your family. Minister to your family. Remember that there are people out there who are not as fortunate as you are. Try to help somebody. Reach out to help somebody, because this is the time now where we're going to see what we are really made of as a people. Are we going to just ignore the poor, the homeless out there? We have people that are still on the streets, homeless during the lockdown. As we were driving around feeding people during the lockdown last weekend, we saw so many homeless persons on the street, and we had to feed them as we were moving through. And they have, thank God, the police didn't lock up all of them.
Mm-hmm. Bishop,
I think.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to ask you, Bishop, though. Right? Of course, you're a man of the church. But churches are feeling the pinch already as well. Just yesterday, the Anglican Church announced that they had to lay off 66 people, and the rest put on half pay. What are other churches feeling in this country? And if the church is feeling it, doesn't that limit what they can do for other people?
It does. It does. All of the churches are feeling it, because let's face it now. People have no job, they have no income. The businesses are shut down, so there's no money flowing. So the churches feel it just like everybody else. So I realize that the churches don't have it, but there are some churches who are able to sacrifice, to give out of their need. There are other people who can give out of their need to help somebody else. This is not the time just to hold out on everything that we have. This is the time to release what's in our hands, because that's how God blesses us also. That's how doors are open. When you release the seed that you have, when you open your hands and you release it, something happens in the spiritual realm. So I want to encourage people, in spite of how things are, in spite of what you see, still give something, still do something. Just do the best that you could do, and know that you have helped somebody.
Any final remarks from you, Bishop, before we...
somebody not to go to bed. I would just like to encourage Bahamians to be calm, to listen to the leaders, listen to your pastors, and be in contact. I encourage pastors to be in contact with your members.
Bishop Walter Hanschel, thank you so much for joining us. Well, after the break, we're going to speak with a young Bahamian farmer in Eleuthera. Hear what he has to say. Welcome back. Now, farming is not the future. Farming is now, thanks to COVID-19. We're going to go to Eleuthera, where a young Bahamian has understood this for quite some time. Welcome via Zoom, Dion Gibson, a.k.a. Gibby the Farmer. How you doing, Dion?
I'm well, Julian. How are you?
Oh, not so bad. How are things in Eleuthera? Let us know what part of Eleuthera you're in anyway right now.
So I reside in Palmetto Point. However, I work in Rock Sound, so I do commute going back and forth.
What's it like during this COVID-19 period?
Right now, we do feel a bit of the pinch. Most stores are closed. The only things really open right now are gas stations and food stores or convenience stores. Everything else is shut down. Um, I think over the weekend for the lockdown, I obviously had to go to the farm. And in my commute back and forth, I saw maybe one or two cars. So I think people are complying. As I went out earlier today, people had masks on. So, we are complying, although we know that it's not here on the island.
Now, of course, because we're in a crisis, of course, people get more concerned about your food stocks. We were told that we have 4 months food stock available. But of course, we need to put a lot more effort into providing our own food. And you've been doing that for a long time. So what opportunities do you see happening for you as a young Bahamian farmer?
So the opportunities are countless. At present, I'm the farm manager at the One Luther Foundation. Right now, we have been we've been pushing out packages of about 20 packages valued at about $35 with a good amount of greens and other vegetable produce. And generally, I get calls all the time from people interested in doing backyard farming, or they want to just be able to grow something for themselves. It's something I've always advocated for because, if you can grow 5 tomatoes, that adds to, or 5 tomato plants, but you can then share with your family and friends, that adds to our food security. The large farms are not going to feed us all because the distribution of the food. And so I think for a young farmer like myself, the time has been long, it's long past, but there's no better time than the present. So I think there are a lot of young farmers out there interested and working with the very little that we have. Privately, but also, there are very few opportunities. I've been fortunate enough to find an organization that allows me to farm. Privately, it's a bit tougher. And so right now, I think with some stimulus, some injections and assistance, we can do a whole lot to feed ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, you had said that you're providing to people who are doing a lot of home gardening, but what else is on Wanaloothra? And I've been to the farm there, and I can see it's expanding even more. Yeah. What else are you able to provide to? Are you sending it straight throughout all of Eleuthera from north to south, or what?
So, no, the backyard farming is me personally giving tips to persons who call me regularly and several groups that I'm in. Mm-hmm. But at the farm, we're providing food among a small network, not very large. We're building up, and every day we're sowing more seeds so that we can have a continuous supply and we have more supply. But presently, mostly among our staff, which numbers about 50 plus persons, and boaters. There are still some boats out in the Rock Sound Harbor. So we have a connection with them, and we've been supplying some of the tourists with food. So agro-tourism is still kind of alive despite it all. And so that's who we've been providing food to right now.
Now, what do we need? Because Bahamians love chicken, right?
Yeah.
Regrettably, I think in Abaco, Big Bird was decimated during Hurricane Dorian. But what would we need to give us a sort of extra boost as far as poultry production is concerned?
Well, I know the government just rolled out an incentive, or they gave some assistance to some farmers for poultry. I think it was primarily eggs. However, I do think some broilers, which are meat birds, persons did receive some of them, persons with existing farms. But I think at this time, we need to allow more people. The large farms are not always the ones who are going to distribute to everybody. They tend to go towards the food stores or the hotels. In a time like this, if someone can grow 50 broilers in their backyard, let's think about it. A household of 5 is probably going to eat maybe 2 birds a week if chicken was their only meat. So if you have 50, that's now 5 families you can feed, to get that food distributed. And it only takes, if you get a day-old chick, it takes 8 to 12 weeks before you're able to slaughter that animal and have chicken on your table. Wow. So it's really not that long that it takes to do that. And so with poultry, I think, and it's an easy protein, something we can grow quickly. The eggs are constant once the bird starts laying. Eggs are an excellent source of protein. And I think that right now should be one of our top livestock focuses, but not neglecting the others.
Now, of course, you heard that the Prime Minister has announced the Food Security Task Force. What would you like to see as a young farmer coming out of that?
So I think most of all, what I would like to see is some opportunities for land grants. I was living in Abaco, and I had a grant over there. Currently, it would be great if I could get a grant here. And so I think land availability to young farmers, along with, some kind of capital injection. You don't need a whole lot. There are some plans that I've written that require, over $100,000 to get started. But with $20,000, you could do a whole lot just to get started and get a foot in the door and make a dent. If you gave 100 young people, and I could give them a list of 100 young farmers, among older farmers, I could give them a list of 100 young farmers. If you gave them $15,000 to $20,000, you would be surprised to see what we as young people can do and push the future of agriculture. I want to make sure I don't insult the older farmers, because I'm in a lot of farming networks, and they're doing a great job, and they need help as well.
What kind of technological advancements are you able to take advantage of now to help boost your production?
So at this time, we actually have a hydroponic system at the farm right now. It's a tower vertigrow system that allows you to grow a lot more in a limited space. So I think that system, we have about, I think it's 12 plants in one tower. And that tower only takes up 1 square foot vertically. So these are technologies that we can use. I know the government said they will be assisting with some hydroponic setups. And there's a bit of a learning curve to it, but I think that once someone gets a hold of it, it can make a huge difference. It's soilless, mostly. And, apart from that, there are a lot of, in terms of livestock, it's not super technological in terms of what you do to produce. Maybe the processing part of the animal, of the meat. We have one abattoir in the country. We need at least something small on each of the islands, because in order for that meat to be sold commercially, a vet has to go and perform a pathology report on that animal. So, we need to look into getting these things going up and running, and, better packing houses so that the farmers can produce them, push their stuff out, and it be properly presented, because a lot of restaurants and roasters, they tend to say the produce doesn't come appeasing to the eye.
Any additional challenges as far as distribution concerned?
I know that the mail boats are still running, and that has always been the main link between the Family Islands and Nassau, the capital. At this time, too, though the Family Islands have a small population, they need to keep food for themselves. But I think, distribution, it trickles down to the distribution of wealth, really. If the wealth is not distributed fairly, and you have persons who can't afford it, it's very hard for a farmer to say, I'm going to give you produce. It costs to produce. Farmers are not wealthy. We have, if any, wealthy farmers in the country who are not wealthy from other things. So it's difficult for a farmer to just give it. I think if we talk about produce, perhaps we can look at increasing the government subsidy afforded to farmers. It's been at the same thing it has been for the past 40 plus years. It's time to revise that, and then farmers can give a little more and say, okay, here we go. This goes to the packing house, or maybe we can say, okay, it goes to social services, who distributes it to persons in need.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to just veer a little bit before we go off and give you the last word, but how is the church life there now? I know you're a church boy. Church life in Eleuthero, yeah.
So the last church service I went to was the Patronal Festival of St. Patrick's, and I feel like the bishop only allowed that because it was the Patronal Festival, and that was March 14th. And, it's null and void. Thankfully, being an Anglican, the diocese has morning devotions that are sent out, and every Sunday there are services that you can watch online and take part in from your home. So that's what I've been doing as a devout Anglican.
Actually, any other words you want to say before we close this section?
I just like to, tell everyone to support local farmers. There are a number of farms and farmers out there and produce houses that have fresh produce available. I don't really want to call any names because I might offend some, but take a drive down Cowpen Road. I know the government restarted the farmers market on Saturdays. Go out and support the farmers. If you're on the family island, you probably know the farmers. Go out and support them. Spend a couple dollars with them so we can keep the money circulating in the country, because it makes no sense sending it out and nothing new is coming in.
Dion Gibson, thank you so much, and be safe, my friend.
Thank you, likewise.
All right. That was Dion Gibson, a farmer in Eleuthera. Now, before we close, I want to remind you that the Ministry of Health will hold a press conference to give an update on the status of COVID-19 in the Bahamas. Of course, you might have heard by now that a ninth person has died from the illness, a 50-year-old man. But before we wrap up, today is the birthday of the Prime Minister of our country, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I understand, Mr. Darren Henfield. We wish them both well. I'm Julian Reid. We'll see you again.